Namaskar. Hello, friends. Today, let us talk about faith. Faith is a must for spiritual pursuit. Let me tell you a small story. Last summer, I had gone to my village with my family for a holiday. One day, I took our teenage son to the river along with a kid from our neighborhood. Upon reaching the river, this kid asked my son if he would come for a swim. Then the following conversation took place between the two of them. The kid said, "Let's go for a swim." My son said, "No, I can't swim." The kid said, "We will teach you. It's not difficult. I learned it in one day." My son said, "No, I can't trust you enough." The kid said, "There is a nice fruit orchard on the other bank of the river. The owner is a kind man and he gives us nice ripe mangoes whenever we go there. You will be able to manage swimming across to the other bank after a couple of days of practice." Then my son said, "I do not know about the ripe mangoes that you are tempting me with. I would rather be satisfied with having pakoras from this stall right here." Ultimately, my son avoided getting into the river and went to the pakoda stall instead. I went to pay my respects to a sadhu sitting under a peepal tree on the river bank. He is an acknowledged spiritual guru for the villagers. The following conversation took place between the two of us. The sadhu said, "What do you understand from this episode of your son refusing to get into the river?" I said, "We are city folks and we do not get any easy opportunity to go for a swim. So I am also as afraid of water as my son." The sadhu said, "I can understand that. What I want to drive home is a spiritual lesson from it." I said, "Please do go ahead, Swamiji. I will be highly privileged." The sadhu said, "This samsara, that is worldly life, is like one bank of a river. Most of us tend to stick to it, being attached to sense pleasures that are available in the world. Wise people over ages have tried to impress upon us that pursuit of sense pleasures is a very inferior way of living as a human being. They tell us that we should seek the ultimate bliss in the form of moksha, that is liberation. But we tend to put our whole trust only in what is directly seen and cannot bring ourselves to putting faith in something that is not seen but is vouched for by many wise seers of the past and present. It is like your son being satisfied with pakoras available ready at hand. He couldn't be tempted by the prospect of nice ripe mangoes that he would get if he swam across the river to the other bank." I said, "But Swamiji, isn't it supposed to be prudent to be satisfied with a bird in hand rather than going for two in the bush?" Sadhu said, "That is true of purely physical matters. But in spiritual matters, if we want to receive the ultimate gift of moksha, we have to give up everything else and simply plunge into the river of sadhana, that is meditation, satsang, that is company of spiritually inclined people, and reading of sadgranthas, that is holy scriptures and other spiritual writings, with a firm faith that it will ultimately lead us to the fruit of moksha." Then I said, "Swamiji, let me extend this analogy and ask, if a boat isn't an easier and safer way of getting across the river, is there any equivalent of a boat in the spiritual context to get across to the other bank of moksha?" Sadhu said, yes, indeed, there is a boat in the form of our Sadguru's grace. If one is blessed with it, he can easily cross the river and attain moksha. Faith is a state of being. Faith, in my view, has to be individualistic. It should not become a collective concept. The moment it becomes a collective concept, many problems arise. If I have faith in a particular concept of whatever is beyond the perceptible, I can pursue it in my own way. It should have nothing to do with others. I do not have to push my faith down the throat of another person. And I would rather we give no name to faith. Name means identity. Avoid identifying faith. The fanatics have more to do with power over others and less to do with spiritual pursuit itself. Faith is aided by being in the company of like-minded people. But do we need to identify with such a group? I would believe not. In my view, faith does not have to have an object to attach to. As per Indian spiritual concepts, there is the Saguna Bhakti, which is devotion directed towards a visible form with a name of a deity. And there is also the Nirguna Bhakti, which is devotion directed towards the formless and nameless singular. As it has happened, those engaged in Saguna Bhakti of one form, let us say Shiva, have nursed animosity towards those worshipping another form, say Vishnu. That is the problem with identifying with a form and name. I will go a step further and say that faith is a state of being rather than a bundle of many specific actions directed towards faith objects. Then there won't be any question of my faith versus your faith. I am faith and you are faith too, and both are completely individual and as different from each other as can be, without any need for a conflict. Blind faith of undesirable and desirable kind. The term blind faith generally has a negative connotation. Rational and scientifically minded people scoff at it because they argue that such a faith has no rational or provable basis. I feel that blind faith can be of two types. One that is undesirable and the other that is desirable. Excuse me. An example of an undesirable blind faith is, say, a belief that tying a particular thread or some such good luck charm on one's wrist or around one's arm will protect him from all kinds of calamities. Indeed, there can be no proofs for holding such a belief, nor is it necessary to fall for it. Instead, one should try and develop an inner strength of mind that can actually enable one to face any kind of calamity. The blind faith of undesirable kind is the faith in one's separate sect and the attendant religious spiritual practices to the exclusion of any regard for other sects and their practices. The conflict between different faiths comes more on account of the different ritualistic injunctions that may be a part of each faith. I firmly believe that rituals have nothing to do with spirituality as such. One may follow certain ritualistic practices, if only to engage one's mind in higher thoughts, to take the mind away from the physical world and our life in it. However, the rituals themselves have no meaning to them. For example, The Shaivites, that is followers of Lord Shiva, apply a horizontal tilak of ash on their foreheads, while the followers of Vishnu, that is Vaishnavas, apply a vertical tilak of sandalwood paste on their foreheads. Now, an indoctrinated follower may have come to believe that it is wrong to apply the tilak other way round, as different from what is prescribed by his faith. They believe people of other faith are engaging in blasphemy. That is how the strife arises. The desirable kind of blind faith is a faith in a spiritual goal, a faith that there is something behind this perceptible creation, a faith that one can know about it and experience it if one has an intense desire for it and if one works towards it in a sustained manner. Of course, this is a blind faith in the sense that one has no proof of that something what may be behind this creation. So one has to blindly pursue the path laid down by the past masters or one's Sadguru. It is like a blind man wanting to cross the road and putting a blind faith in someone who offers his hand to help him safely cross the road. The blind man does not know this other person or his intentions. He doesn't even know excuse me. He doesn't even know if the person offering help can himself see or not. But he nevertheless accepts his help in the blind faith that the person offering help must be in a position to see the road and the traffic, and he indeed would have no reason to do any deliberate harm to the blind man. If the blind man were to wait for some kind of proof before he decided to accept help, he would be waiting for his whole life. The first and foremost requirement in the pursuit of spirituality, in my view, is a readiness to proceed on a path that has no tangible, much less visible or proven or demonstrated destination. I know it sounds irrational, crazy, like a blind faith, but I will stick my neck out and say that spiritual pursuit has to be out of a blind faith, since before starting we do not know what liberation is in terms of our conditioned knowledge and experiences. And I may even say that a completely rational mind is unfit to pursue spirituality. Not that everyone has to pursue spirituality anyway. One may be perfectly right in believing that he can very well do without spirituality, and he may indeed live happily. No arguments on that. I will stop here today. We will continue with some more discussion on faith next time. Until then, bye, take care.